Hello and welcome to Just Skimming the Surface. I'm your host, Wesley W. Skymmilk Skim. I'm here today with Asa Wallace. Hello, Asa.
Hi. Hey.
How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I'm a little sleepy, but I did take a nap before this.
Yeah,
so.
you told me nice fat nap.
Yeah, I'm in the middle ground of like just rested
Just
enough
woke up, yeah.
and slept enough.
Ooh, we like that ground.
Yeah.
We like that ground. It's like in that ground, you feel like, you could sleep again.
Yeah, I
you
could.
have that option.
I could sleep right now if I wanted to.
Right now,
Yeah.
on air, sleep for the next 20 minutes, and I'll just keep it recording.
Yeah, and then it would be ASMR. Because I would snore.
Everyone told me after the live show, they were like, you should do a Just Skimming the Surface ASMR. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know about all that. But I'm open to new experiences.
Yeah, I think it'd work out a lot.
So Asa is here today to talk about art.
Yeah.
He really enjoys art.
Yeah, in a super general, not at all pretentious kind of sense.
I do like art.
Oh, yes.
Yes, quite.
Yeah.
Art.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know really where to start
begin?
with it.
Well, I think the best place to start is from the beginning. So, if you want to just lie down in my little counselor couch here, and I'll be your therapist for the next hour.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
So basically, tell me where your interest for art began. Like, where did you start to feel that this was for you?
Well, I mean, I grew up in an artist family. I didn't come from like a very science or STEM heavy background. I didn't. My parents. My dad was a custodian for most of his life. Like, he was just a janitor, and my mom was a postal carrier. Like, she was a mail carrier, and that was their job. But at home, it was constantly like cartoons, reading, music. Like, my dad had this whole wall of like CDs. He used to have like a whole wall of cassettes, but then he traded them out for CDs, because obsolete,
Gotta change with the times.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up constantly surrounded by media in many different forms, talking about, what things meant, or like, focus more so in that realm than I think any other. And so, I mean, I grew up with art. I grew up, it was, what our family did. And in many different purposes of art too, because I know that like, there's art for art's sake. There's kind of like, like a 2AA kind of mindset, like like educational kind of art. I grew up doing VBS, like Vacation Bible School, which basically is like for like a couple weeks during summer. You would like go to a church and there'd be like a theme or something.
Yeah.
And like what was cool about it was my mom would usually try to help with like, she would create designs, she would build puppets, and she used puppetry and like other, like, she was an incredible like visual artist. Like, she's really good at like sketches and like realistic work, whereas my dad, he was super into cartoons. He could do voices really well. Like, he was awesome. He had like a whole he really idolized Mel Blanc, as most voice actors do, and like he had his whole repertoire, and he would throw it out. Like, he would yell at me as like Yosemite Sam or something. You know what I mean? Like, just I never
fragging varmint.
Yeah, and I think that like the different purposes of art allow for like a wide exploration of what it is.
Yeah.
And so like being raised by parents who were artists, who like didn't do that as their job, but had it as their perspective with how they saw life through, I thought was very beneficial for me. And then when it came to my siblings, I have two sisters. The oldest one, she wanted to do film. It didn't really work out, as things do, because my family went through a lot of hardship. I know like a lot of people kind of in the mid 2000s, the housing crisis, it hit my family too. And so my sister, my oldest, she kind of started to help the family. She took over
so she became
financially,
head of household.
Yeah. And so like she was the main breadwinner But my other sister, she was in an academy. I know at Ball State they have this program where for high schoolers that your last couple years you can go to Ball State and do high school in a college setting. Like you take like, you know, advanced classes, and basically it's like
AP classes.
pretty much, but like
Yeah, I've
a little
never heard of that before.
higher there. You know, like you're going to Ball State for high school.
Yeah.
You know, which it was a really incredible opportunity. But after that, she went to Columbia College Chicago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which I know that you have history.
Yeah. Went there for a year.
Yeah, and she went there for 4 years, but she was lucky enough to get an opportunity to be an intern there.
Yeah.
An intern at Warner Brothers Studios.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so she was working in California throughout college, like in and out. Like she would, you know, go to school in Chicago for the year and then go to California, work over the summer, and then go back and forth.
That's cool. Wow.
Like some of her mentors are Spike Brandt and Tony Cervone, which are the directors for Space Jam.
Yeah.
You know, she worked on like these like individual Tom and Jerry pieces that they did. Like there was one that was like Wizard of Oz. There was one where like
I've seen that.
Yeah, it was like Sherlock Holmes. There's another
Yeah.
one. I think the most artistic one that she did was the John Cena WWE one. You know what I mean?
With Tom and Jerry?
Yeah, there was a Tom and Jerry. I think it was, or maybe
There was a
Scooby Doo or
Scooby-Doo
something.
one. There was a Scooby-Doo.
It might be one of them.
Scooby-Doo John Cena one was amazing.
Yeah,
If
it was
she
like
worked
Triple
on
H
that,
was on it.
ooh,
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know.
Props to her.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I know. I mean, like, this is my family, and so like for me, like coming up, I was nervous too because I saw like all my family. I looked up to them.
Yeah.
And I didn't do theater. I drew a lot, and I would like listen to music, but I never really thought I could sing. I tried to stay away because my family had such, you know, high, not necessarily expectations, but like taste, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I grew up, you know, emulating their taste. And then like I tried to do stuff and I was like, I'm not really that good when I was like, you know, in, like 7th grade.
I get you.
But when I was in high school, then I started to try theater. My first show was Footloose the musical.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I played Cowboy Bob.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so he was like this like rock and roll singer, and it was like I had to do it, you know.
Yeah.
It was a very strong experience, and it was, you know, visceral. Like Cowboy Bob opens the second act, you know, like the curtains open and he has to like sing this song, and like for someone who had never really done anything before, that was just like, you know, push
a
into the
big
pool
thing,
moment, you know.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I've never seen Footloose in its entirety.
That's A-okay.
It's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, like I think it's a good movie. It's fun. It's a fun musical. I think it's perfect for high schools. It's, you know, it's an excuse to dance a lot. It's an excuse it's fun, and it's fun to sing, and like there's a wide range of music, and it's, you know, it has a lot of the classic themes of like, you know, I don't like you, Dad, or I don't like you, older people, and the older people are like, well, I don't like you so much either, and then at the end they're like, oh, we can recognize that we're just from different generations, or, you know, I just care about you, kiddos, you know.
Yeah, I feel
it's just, I don't know, but I mean, at the same time too, I was exploring like music production. Like I mean, I did a lot of work in GarageBand, but I wanted to for some time work in video games and like do like composition or something, you know, like
that's cool,
like musical composition, and I thought that was what I was going to do. I know for a long time, like throughout high school, I wanted to do something in video games, whether it was like writing or, as I said, you know, composition. And I started to go down that road. But then, you know, as I started to get closer to the end of high school, I was like, you know, I don't know what I want to do. Because I knew that if I were to go down the music path, and I wouldn't know if I could go to college for it. Yeah. Would I have to take time to like develop more of a sense? Because I wasn't like practicing music. You know, I played here and there, but I didn't know what to do. But I noticed that, you know, I'd been doing theater for 3 years, you know, because I started my sophomore year, and I was like, well, this is what I have been doing. This feels right, and looking back on it, like in hindsight, I was just like, why haven't I been pursuing theater specifically, you know? And so I was talking to my teacher, you know, my drama teacher out there, and I was like, you know, I don't know, is this what I want to do? Like, you know, and she's like, well, why not? And I was like, I don't know, I'm scared. Like, I don't know if I could.
Yeah,
and she's like, well, that's
nerve-wracking.
And she's like, well, that's a stupid reason. You know, it's like, if you're scared to do it, I mean, like, you can. I mean, you can do it. There's no reason not to. You know, if that's what it is, I mean,
yeah,
that's what she meant. But I mean, so I've been pursuing theater since, you know, like more specifically as like a job or like what I want to do in the future. And then when I like now coming here, like I've been working, and I haven't pulled away from any of the other art that was in my life. You know, I haven't pulled away from some of like the mentalities. I haven't pulled away from, you know, I seek out art, but I don't like stay in the theater realm, you know? And so I think all of like my ideas really culminated in Studio the South this past semester. Because I think that basically what happened with that was I started I wanted to do a play. I wanted to direct a play for Free Stage. I knew I wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And so I was looking through a bunch of work, and I found there was Chuck Mee. He's a playwright.
Chuck Mee.
Yeah, and he basically, his whole gig is he is one of the few, I think it's patron playwrights. Basically, there are people who, there's like a couple or like an older, like wealthy couple who are like, hey, we love your work. We're going to pay for you to write plays. And we just want you to keep writing because we like you as an artist.
Yeah.
And so he's been doing that forever, but he's known for his, you know, really, really weird work. You know, he has
avant-garde.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
And so like, what I was going through his stuff, and I found a play called Van Gogh's Sunflowers.
Yeah, I remember that being the first one that you proposed, right?
Yeah, and so that was the initial name of his work. And when I was researching him, basically his artistic ideal is taking older work or taking like work that is outside of kind of theater, you know, like literary text, and turning it into shows and turning it into theater.
Kind of like ekphrasis kind of writing.
Yeah.
Ekphrasis? Ekphrasis, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
I just know because I'm doing a unit for U-High on ekphrastic poetry.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like poetry about works of art.
So
you take, like, a work of art, like a painting, and you write a poem on it.
Oh, that's
like
pretty
about
cool.
what it makes you feel and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what this play sounds like. It sounds like an ekphrastic writing.
Well, what was cool about what he did was he went on to, if you type in Van Gogh's letters, there's a website, I think, just straight up called that, and it's an online archive of all of the letters that were sent from Van Gogh and then to Van Gogh, like all of these like conversations, because I mean they've all been collected, they're all like kept somewhere safe with them, they were all digitized, put online, you can read through them, and he took a bunch of separate pieces of text, like chunks of text, from these letters, and he built it into the show. And something like, I mean, that was this kind of headier part of the show, like more logic. But away from that, there was this kind of this right brain, very abstract parts of the show that were like, I know there was like a woman who her whole head was an eye. And then she was with a cubist man, and then they would like come in and they would walk on stage, and then she would sing this beautiful aria, and then they would dance together.
How would she sing if she's just a giant eye?
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. And so like there's like a man who he would take this box and he'd put it on stage, and he'd take a wine bottle and he'd throw the wine bottle into the box, and then do a headstand into the box, and then you'd be like, oh cool, he did this like crazy feat, but then he would pull his head out of the box and it'd be covered in like blood and glass. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean.
It's just all of these, you know, like kind of these pictures, you know, and these really abstract.
So taking like abstract paintings and work and kind of just putting them on.
Not even necessarily work, but kind of like the ideas behind work.
Oh, okay.
So like there is a man who is cubist, like he represents this style or this understanding of work. There's a third character because it's Van Gogh. It's his brother Theo, and then Theo is in the original text. Theo is off stage; he's just a voice, and Van Gogh is alone on stage, kind of just like working in this world. And there's a third person who is a guy in a cart who just talks loudly. He's just a guy who like he wheels in his cart at somewhere at the top of the show, and then just randomly will yell stuff sometimes. You know what I mean? And so like. I don't know how much they specifically connect to real works of art. I'm not sure. I think they're more meant to just be like, you know, things for people to bounce off of, like aesthetically or like in a very vague, like abstract sense.
Yeah, something to draw some sort of meaning from.
Yeah, and so, but like as I was reading this, I was thinking like, how would I do this for free stage? You know, because obviously you can find the actors, you know, and like you could try to like fit it in the audience, but. I think the guy with the head in the box, like this kind of like acrobatic work. I thought about Gamify Circus. Like if I could find somebody from Gamify who could do a headstand, you know, do stuff like that. And I thought, you know, there's a part of the show too where there was like a mannequin, like a woman would bring in a mannequin and she would dress it and paint on it and like create with the mannequin in that moment. And I thought, why not just get a painter, you know, or like, why not, you know, if we're going to we could put music in the show. I know there's a train.
This train is I'm going to send a very strongly worded letter to the trains.
Yeah, I love trains.
I don't, why do they even need horns anymore? I thought they got rid of the horns.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think out here they need it the most. Because, I mean, the kids are, well, the trains are, they keep stopping out here. Is that still a problem?
All the time.
I don't know if that still is, but I know that was a pretty bad. Kids were climbing over cars.
Yeah, they don't know what to do. So they're like, I need to get to my class, and they'll just like walk through it.
It's crazy,
like,
you know.
All right, tangent over.
Yeah, by trains. But I started to think more about like, one of the biggest thing about Chuck Mee's work is that he specifically writes it for you to mess with it. He wants you to break it apart and use it in a different facet. I mean, he kind of wants you to take it because that's what he did.
Yeah.
You know? So what he did was he found Van Gogh's letters and he made his own show and he added these abstract elements. And he's like, you can do this for free without rights or anything. You don't even have to put my name on it. But if you can twist it in a good enough way. So I thought about it. It's like, well, I mean, I could do this show. I could, you know, kind of take some of the ideas from it, you know, and put up his play, but twist it to fit what we need here, you know. And something that I've always been aware of is the fact that, you know, all of our separate departments are very disconnected, you know. By departments, I mean College of Fine Arts.
Every single thing in the college. Like, it's the only thing I've ever seen collaboration on is, I mean, I guess the dance piece because they use our space and everything, but also the opera when they did that. Yeah. But even then, it just seems like there's this huge disconnect
and stigma. You know, there's a lot of people who, like, are not really a big fan of stepping out of their realm, or like they kind of have already preconceived notions of the other realms. And it's frustrating because I mean, like, for me, you know, as I described prior, it's like I have this art background and I would love to, you know, be able to interact with artists that are not theater, you know? I mean, I want to be able to step out, but there's no community kind of built. And I don't think I'm alone in that.
No, you're not. I mean, just today in iStop, this student came in talking about wanting to do some collaboration between the art schools and everything.
That's cool.
Because he has some sort of band thing that he does with like musicians outreach. finding like live music with DJs and bands and
That's so
everything,
cool.
doing like house shows. And he said that he wanted to like work with the groups on campus to sort of do events and everything like that. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people who want to do it, but nothing is happening.
Yeah, and so like I wanted to tackle that. I saw this work that had such like it was so ripe for changing and for messing with.
Right.
Exactly.
The picking.
Yeah, you know? And so I really wanted to do it after that. Once I started to really kind of visualize that, I was like, this is what I want to do. I knew I didn't want to step into it planning anything, because I knew that, you know, the other artists, they're like, you know, they're the masters of their realm. You know,
Yeah.
like if I were to have a painter or a musician, I would want them to be, you know, their representative, to come in and say, this is what I do, this is how I feel about it.
Yeah, not
And
just someone who's an actor saying like, oh, I have to be a painter now.
yeah, or like me being a director and saying, oh, but like this is how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
You know? And so I was lucky enough to get it, you know, accepted through Free Stage. I worked and talked to a couple people. My advisor was Kiyu Nam. He was incredibly helpful. He was able to give me some kind of scholarly background for stuff. So I mean, like, there's this. It was at Black Mountain College, and this is like a really seminal avant-garde like moment, I guess would be the term. And I think it was like 50s and 60s. But John Cage, he's a musician, and he's known. Something that he's known for is something called 433, which is a musical piece which is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. It's just rests. It's all rests. So it's funny because he will, you know, he'll give this to an orchestra, and an orchestra will just,
And they'll just sit
and then
there.
play for 4 minutes and 33 seconds of rest.
Rest. So,
You know?
how do you?
Yeah,
I don't know how you can get away with calling that your own composition.
Yeah, you know, but it, like,
kind of makes me mad.
the way that he describes his work is that he organizes sounds. He doesn't. Yeah, it's not about like the feeling necessarily. It's not about, you know, like creating music that sounds like, you know, like Bach or something. It's not about that. It's more so like organizing sounds. And he talks about there's a really cool YouTube video of him talking about like traffic, and how traffic is very harmonious, and like the sounds that you hear like when you're in a city, and how they all kind of, you know, oddly work together.
Yeah.
He has a lot of music like that, and he's known for it. And it was him and Merce Cunningham, who he was a dancer who separately had the idea of like movement was what dance was.
Yeah.
And because for him, he considered like walking, standing, sitting, like just kind of normal body gestures, just as important as like a pirouette.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
of
and
course.
stuff like that. And like he built dance pieces in a similar mindset to how John Cage looks at music. And so when they met at Black Mountain College, they, you know, obviously vibed to a good degree, and they were like this like working duo. And so eventually there is this thing called Theater Piece Number 1, which was basically them two, and then I think a couple of artists in this like mangle of a space, and like all these artists would basically just work at the same time, and it was performance art, but it was theater, but it was also like this music and this dance. There's all these things happening at
On the
once,
stage at
and
one time.
that inevitably became a new form called a happening. You know, where like, you know, because it's not necessarily story driven. There's no story to follow. It's just a bunch of stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Finding
then
the
you kind of take your
harmony
meaning.
and unity and
Yeah,
everything.
you know, or the disconnect and
contrast,
why,
disconnect.
you know.
Yeah,
And-
it's basically something that any audience member can come in and take something different out of.
Yeah, you know, and like you can see it multiple times and find different perspectives. And I really enjoy that about theater, because theater is, you know, if there was ever like a more finite form of art, it's theater. It's like you literally have to be there to really see it, you know? And I know like when you're in theater, you kind of try to work to this point where you can consistently do it.
Yeah,
you
just
can
keep, like-
hit that moment every single night, you know?
Which is not easy.
Is not easy, and also at the same time kind of you can't. You really can't.
It's
Yeah,
impossible to do something
you know?
the same way every single night. impossible.
Yeah, so I mean, I love, walking into a project knowing that I want this to be different every single time it's done.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully in drastic ways or even small ways. So that was another mentality going in. And once it was accepted from Free Stage, I was able to cast it. I was able to find the artists, and we started rehearsals. And a lot of rehearsals were kind of just, letting them go. I mean, the first week we started, because we didn't have like a solid script yet, because I gave them a period of time, specifically when Van Gogh was in Saint Remy or Saint Remy. Basically, he was in a mental institution for some time. It was directly after his ear was cut off.
Okay.
And I know that he was dealing with a lot of his mental illness at the time, and he voluntarily checked himself into this mental institution. And so I told the people in the cast, I was like, you have from like this letter to this letter to find stuff, and then I'll bookend the show with text, but you guys find stuff, because I wanted to make sure every single word, every single letter that was used was something that hit the people that were working with it, and so we as this whole group made this show together. And then when we started rehearsing, we weren't at that point yet, right? The first week or so was, I know Emily Vale or M Vale, she brought in a Sylvia Plath poem, and we worked poetry for a while, just to get the idea of text. And we had each separate day of rehearsal would be the actors, and they would kind of work by themselves for a little bit, but then we would put one artist in. So I think we started with Danny. He was our musician. He would play the piano, and then they would kind of improv off of each other. They would perform, and then he would play off of them. He would play music to mess with them or to kind of direct the piece in his own way, and then the next day we had Bailey, and Bailey Reiser. She's a dancer, so she would dance, and then her movements would work into the same kind of into the piece at the same time. And then the next day we had Athena Salat. She's this incredible painter, and she would watch them, and then she would paint, or she would try to pick up cues off of their text. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first week or so was everybody kind of getting to know each other in their forms, or in the way that they work. And then as time went on, we started to, we had a script eventually, and then we started to work with the text of the show. And we really took our time going through it. But it was quite not a slow pace, but we took the time to really explore.
Yeah, because it sounds like a process that you really need the time to just spend with it.
Yeah.
It needs time to just spend doing.
Yeah. And so we eventually got to the point where we had to form it a little bit more. Because I mean, the thing is with devised theater, is that it takes a very, very long time, longer than you expect.
Oh yeah.
More often than not, devised theater takes about maybe even 8-9 months. And we had about 2 or 3.
Yeah, devised theater isn't just improv.
Yeah, because
it's got thought behind it,
and it's about taking time to question it as it's happening. To bring in elements that can contrast, or how can we fit this perspective in? Are we missing this voice? How do we put it in?
How
and
do
I
we
think
include everything?
Yeah, and so we were looking for a quality of the show as well. I know for me, a lot of kind of directing for aesthetic, but then also directing for story. Directing for feeling, which I mean is also kind of hard to do because when you work with an actor, when you're directing an actor, you're kind of playing an inception game.
Oh yeah.
So you have to kind of get them to think what you're thinking, and then have that back and forth, because it is a back and forth. It's not just you controlling someone.
It's a cooperative process.
But you want them to kind of get to the idea that you have as well, And then like when you're working with like a pianist, you can just be like, can you just play it sadder? And they're like, okay, cool, dope. And then they do it, you know, and but you can't really do that with an actor.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to play so many different, there's so many different tactics you have to as like a coordinator, right? I tried to take the label of curator more than director, because I thought that like all these people are making all of this art, you know, I'm just trying to, you know, say maybe this would work with like the idea that we had, or like where do you think it should go, or like encouraging people to, you know, contrast more, or say like you can affect this person by doing this.
Yeah.
You know, the audience will be affected if you to do this to somebody, or like, you know, I know a big one was Athena. She would paint, but she was very focused on the painting. She would, you know, kind of stay with it most of the time. But towards the end, we asked her to step away from it, and she would have these like really beautiful moments of her pulling away, and not just observing and then like, you know, immediately, you know, putting on the canvas, but like really observing, you know, and you could still see her working in a way.
Yeah,
it was just,
you could see the process in her face.
And I thought like, you know, it was just all of this stuff was happening, but it couldn't have happened without them.
Yeah.
You know, it couldn't have happened without like, you know, because I think the hope was, and I think it was accomplished, was for have everybody on their game, and to encourage everybody to like to be on their game, and to, you know, like validating them and helping them understand that like your art is your expressive tool, and like what you feel in this moment, you can express it, you know. And I think that everybody felt that, and everybody felt very safe and comfortable with each other, and it created really, really incredible art, you know, that was different from anything that they separately could have done, you know, and it was about the relationships between all of them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you think would be different in your results if one of those arts was just not in the piece?
I don't know. I don't think it would have had the breadth of experience. I don't think it would have hit so close to the core of what we do. Because the thing is like when it comes to music, for example, like music is a very, and we learned this in the process too, it's a very powerful form, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like if you play the piano, it's not even just about how loud it can be, right? It's about like, you know, so the word isn't distracting, right? But like it is a voice. It's a very loud voice, you know, and it's a voice that I think we as humans are very attuned to, just being, you know, creatures that, you know, like if birds can hear each other through music, you know, we do as well. It's a visceral feeling for us.
Yeah, of course.
And so like if we had removed any sort of music from the show, it would have just been dead air, you know, and then there wouldn't have been this, you know,
would have given off a different sort of vibe, a different sort of message.
It's silence, you know, and I think that would have allowed for maybe more of like a blobbiness to it. And it would have taken some of the rhythm out. It might have, you know, allowed for, you know, abstract movement, but like where would they go, you know? But then I think it might be easy to say like, well, what if you took the painting out, you know? And I think like maybe we benefited from this process because it was about Van Gogh, because if we had no painting elements in a show about a painter, probably would have been, you know what I mean?
People would have been very confused.
Yeah, it would have been like, why? You know, but I think that like what the painting did, and I realized this even recently because I met with Keen to talk about some stuff, and he still has the canvases from the performances, and I was looking at them, and it's like Athena like really felt and experienced these shows, really internalized a lot of the ideas behind it, and you can see it in her work. Like you can see it in those paintings, you know? And I think that like something that theater doesn't get to do is be immortal.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's so alive and then it dies. It's very ephemeral in that.
Yeah,
and
it's only alive when it's happening.
Yeah, but what I thought was incredible was Athena was able to take this take this ephemeral thing, take all the ideas and the experiences of it, and then immortalize it. And without that, I think the show, you know, it would not have been the same.
Yeah.
You know, it would.
No matter what art you take away,
Yeah.
it totally changes the entire message of the piece.
Yeah.
Which is just interdisciplinary arts. And
Yeah.
how do we find our art connected to other forms of art?
Yeah, and I think what was good, another big lesson from the project was there's gonna be no there's no answer like that's out there that like you can like read.
Yeah.
You know, it's like get into a room with another artist and explore. You know, like start. You know, it's kind of just pressing the play button. Because I know like, you know, if we had probably just jumped into the room, something might have happened, right? But I know that like we couldn't have planned any of the things that happened. You know,
it probably wouldn't have been as deep.
Yeah.
And emotional.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have
without
had
all that background.
Yeah, you know, and I thought that it definitely, you know, it was also interesting because I know that like with the theatrical aspect of it, like, you know, because we had two actors in the show, we had M and then we had Gwen, and we like I realized kind of in the like later on in the process that like, you know, that was a little show that was kind of inside of this work, you know, and I think that it was cool to realize that I had to direct them as if this was, you know, this piece, right? Like we are the theater element. And it made me understand more what a director is, I think, in that, because I know for a good chunk of the process, I kind of just wanted to leave them be. I wanted them to explore and figure out things, you know, and it's nothing on them, but I think I realized that like as a director, as an actor, I mean, it's hard to kind of walk into like this abstract realm without properly knowing what to do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there are autonomous actors out there, you know, but I think that especially here, I guess, in college, but just in a general sense, I mean, like actors need to work with directors. You know, I
think when it comes to educational theater, a lot of the times the actors who are students, they're just looking to learn. They want to know what they have to do.
Yeah.
And I know my experience with community theater is the actors always seem to know what to do. I put air quotes around that because like sometimes they don't. Yeah. They know what they think they should do. Yeah. And there's less of like a collaborative process in some of the community theater stuff that I've seen. Yeah. Than in educational theater. Yeah. Because you have everyone who's learning from each other, and it is a collaborative process all the way through. And everyone's cooperating and learning from each other. And as soon as one person doesn't cooperate with that, it kind of throws the whole thing off track.
Yeah, it's weird, you know? And I think that, like, as a director, you know, especially in this realm, it's about helping everybody see, you know, like, there is more that you might not know. There is a lot that you do know, though. You know, there is, you know, it's about, you know, validation, understanding who these artists are, who these actors are, you know, and then like working with them, because, you know, it's like when you're an orator, right? But you're also an interpreter. Yeah. You know, you are taking this in and you're feeling it, and then you're like releasing it from you. And I thought that it was cool because, you know, you need help in that. You know, it's hard to be alone in that realm. It can be overwhelming, you know, because I know like stepping to someone like Van Gogh, you know, I think all of us understand who he is to such a degree, you know, or at least have a notion of who he could be. Yeah. And then, you know, having to interpret him, whether or not you're a dancer or a musician or an actor, it could feel like a daunting task, but I think everybody got to that point, you know, pretty early on too. That they got to the point where they could be like, you know, this is how I feel about it, and this is how I want to talk about it.
Yeah, which allowed for more creation and refining that creation, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think from earlier on in your story, you kind of got your interest in theater just from the hobbies of your family. It didn't really seem like, besides your sister, it didn't seem like anyone was really doing it as their job. Yeah, and I think that really helps artists draw from. there's a difference
Yeah.
between artists who do it for a living and artists who do it for a hobby.
Yeah.
What would you kind of describe for that difference there?
Well, I mean,
Because you've worked with both.
I really do believe that it is a 100% a case per case answer. It always is. It's always going to be. And it, like, for example, like my dad, he wanted to be an actor. Like, he wanted to be an actor or a voice actor. He wanted to work in cartoons. He wanted to do all these different things, right? But, then he, like, met my mom, and, like, they dated for many years. And they worked together a lot. Like, they collaborated. Like, I know they did, like, haunted houses and stuff together. As I said, my mom makes puppets, but she would act with him a little bit. She would write, like, hold the camera. She would, do, like, makeup for him and stuff like that. And he found, a lot of love in that, and he was able to continue to create and express. But, unfortunately, like, you have to survive.
Yeah.
You have to, work. You have to make money,
Not everyone can make it in the industry.
And like he, then he had kids, and then like when you have kids, you have, like, somebody has to stay home and somebody has to take care of those kids, and like, it just, like, it kind of leaves you,
Yeah.
So for us, being their kids, we very much so understood where they were artistically, but we also understood how they were unable to do those things. Something happened or something got in the way of it. And I know that each of us in our own separate ways are like, we're not going to let that happen. I mean, my sister is out in California. She's doing stuff. I'm in college. I'm like, I hope to, continue to do things in art for the rest of my life and make it a priority, and see, like, the balance. Because it is a hard balance, and I'm not here to say that, like, my family failed or any sort of sense, but I know, like, priorities become priorities, And so the question that you did ask, though, was about, like, hobbies versus, like, doing it as a career. And it's like, doing it as a career, you have to have a very, very different mindset. Because when you do it as a career, it's not about... I think, like, a pretentious answer I could say would be, like, you kind of have to not do it for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do it for the mainstream. Like, if you want to be an actor, it's not necessarily about chasing the projects that you really are deeply interested in. It's about finding a job. It's about finding a gig, or like, I'm going to do theater here. And so we focus so much on, like, our work ethic, so that, like, people, like, respect our work ethic so much that they want to keep working with us, and then we'll just keep getting jobs. And it's like, I mean, artistically, they all serve you, right? But some serve you more than others. But then you always, I mean, like, some people are lucky enough to understand where they are artistically, or like, this is what I want to do, and you don't really get a chance to chase it if you're, playing in that realm, or if you're playing it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so, like, but if you treat it like a hobby, and I think I'm going to twist that a little bit, if you treat it, more for what it is for, like, expression, or like, you follow how you feel,
as an outlet.
Because if it's a hobby, then you don't have any pressures. You don't have this expectation for, like, I have to do this. I have to, like,
this is how I make my living. I have to get this done.
Yeah, it's like, I have to do my Shakespeare scene. Like, I have to go home. I have to memorize. I have to do that. And I learn from it. It's beneficial.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun. It's fun to do. I love it, but I'm not doing it for me. I am, and it is benefiting me, and I'm doing it, but it's work, but like, when I think about studio, when I find other interdisciplinary stuff, I know that that's where I want to be, and eventually, like, when you chase stuff like that enough, then it becomes the job, and then you find other stuff. Like, something I absolutely love this. I'm so proud of her for it. My sister, she's out in California right now, and she actually met this question, very much, like, in its purest form, because she works in the animation industry.
Yeah.
Right. She works for, like, like Warner Brothers and all these different,
That's very different than the people who are on YouTube
and
just making these things.
That's an insane amount of pressure, constant work, and she lost a lot of her care, a lot of her, because I mean, she did it really well, but then, like, all the politics and all, like, the way that things work out there, it is frustrating. It is, hard, and it pushes you to make that art your job.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you are efficient, then you can work on things, blah, 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 capitalism, blah, 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 But what she did was she was like, I need an art that is outside of this that I can truly just express in, just create in, right? She also at the same time was like, I'm not satisfied with my body or how I look at my body. And so she started to take pole dancing classes. And for the past few years, she's been a pole dancer. And she's been working, and she uses that as she performs, like it's a way for her, because, she did theater in high school too.
Yeah.
But she is able to perform, she's able to, be physically fit, she's able to create, she doesn't have any of these kind of pressures or expectations, It's fascinating. It's such a balance, it's such a line. Because if you want to do something bad enough, you want to make it your life, but then, you have a social pressure to do it in a certain way so that you can make money on it, and then, something is lost. It's a constant juggling act,
Exactly.
So
it's like there's no way we're ever going to find that balance.
Yeah.
But I think just finding a way to just express yourself really helps.
And I think, going back to Van Gogh even, Van Gogh is, everybody, knows the classic tragic tale of him was that, he constantly was working, but never really got any esteem, never really made money off of it. But, there's an argument to be made about how much he benefited by being true to himself. He stayed true, continued to express in his facet. He worked in a way that people didn't understand, didn't like, but then they looked at it and they were like, wow, he was really saying something here. So, I think it's about, I personally, as an artist would much rather, do work that is true to myself, no matter what the response is, rather than, do something that would hit a wider audience or do something that would, be a little more widely accepted. Because I know that, when you're looking for, authenticity, when you're looking for, what you feel, your expressions, you're unique, and you're always going to be. And I know, a lot of art is also there for other people to kind of put yourself into, I just think that that's where I would like to be personally. And I think I think I made a point there.
Yeah. I think I found the point there.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it definitely makes sense. It's you want to be true to yourself in your work, because as soon as you lose that, you lose the purpose of why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
As soon as you're just working for that paycheck rather than the reason why you started doing art.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point anymore?
Yeah. And that was the thing that made me the happiest about studio, was that I know, everybody, at least from what they told me, I can't assume if they didn't say anything, but people would come to me and, from the process and be like, wow, I really remember, this is, I love what I do. Me, I know Bailey loved it, I love her. She's so good. But she, she found so much validation, and she really, found a rekindling in her love for dance, and it's I think it's allowing people to be their truest selves and express as their truest selves, and I thought that was the most beneficial part of it. And I think it's, I'm talking so much. It's incredible to see other people feel that validation. It's incredible to see people be able to speak in the way that they love to speak, and then, say what they want to say, and be able to walk away from it and, be respected for it. And I think that's what everybody in the studio got to do, at least to some form, and to some degree, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a mutual respect for the art between everyone there. And that's kind of what the whole interdisciplinary idea is just being able to respect all these forms of art at one time to create one unifying or contrasting piece.
Yeah.
Something that other people can get something out of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed, quite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But yeah, I think I'm really understanding now more than ever that that's what I want to do. I really want to continue to build experiences that allow others to feel that way. you know? Because I think, like, I wanted to find, you know, for so long a way to, like, help my community in a way that felt true to me, you know? And I think this is it to some degree, you know?
Yeah.
I need water.
Well, that's good, because with that, I think we're just skimming the surface. So while you die over there, thank you so much, Asa.
No problem.
And talking about your experience and helping just reflect on it. Thinking about, you know, what difference our art makes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Thank you.
And with that, we are just skimming the surface. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcasting service. Don't forget to like W Skymmilk on Facebook and to check out wskymmilk.com for more about me. This has been Wesley W. Skymmilk Skim. Have a great night.